Planet Ryloth invaded. Subjected to a brutal droid occupation, the people of Ryloth are starving under the blockade of a separatist fleet. Evil separatist leader Wat Tambor now rules with an iron fist. Answering a plea from the Senate, the Grand Army of the Republic mounts a bold offensive to liberate the system. It is up to Anakin Skywalker and his Padawan Ahsoka to make way for Obi-Wan's ground assault.
Ho ho! Greetings once again, Bucketheads. Mavar Tigar. Welcome to the 44th blockade-busting episode of Mandovision, Nargai Tom, and thank you so much for checking out this small, independent Star Wars podcast. Remember, the best way to reach out to us is via social media at Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share this show with all the other Mandalorians in your covert. If possible or so inclined, and listening on Apple Podcasts, please give us those sweet 5-star reviews. They are so absolutely critical in helping a small show like us stand out, not get lost in the shuffle of all that content that exists out there on the internet. And they also mean the world to me, so I thank you in advance for taking the time to do that. And remember, we are on all your favorite podcasting platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Pandora. We are on Amazon Music and Audible right now. So many options. Pick your favorite and have a great time. All right, we're back with another stellar episode of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and I think we've been waiting for this one, right? If you've watched the show before, and and maybe this is your first time going back to season 1, you probably remember that this 3-part arc right here is one of the high water marks of the season, and it's a really nice 3-part episode. We're starting with Season 1, Episode 19, Storm over Ryloth. Original air date was February 27th, 2009. And yeah, it's going to be a good one. We're gonna have a lot of fun for these next 3 episodes because I really enjoyed this 3-episode arc, and revisiting it was a good time as well. So let's kind of get into the show proper, shall we? You know what that means. You got one important thing you got to do. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Admiral, 4 more enemy cruisers have joined the blockade.
You've got to warn those fighters.
Commander, we've been caught in a trap.
You're overreacting, Admiral. I can get us through. Blue Squadron, stay the course.
We're all set, Blue Leader.
I'm ordering you to return to the ship. We're going to need your help.
Ahsoka, it's too risky.
Get your pilots out of there.
All right, as I said, Season 1, Episode 19, Storm over Ryloth. Original air date February 27th, 2009. Our plot this episode is: the Separatists have invaded the Twi'lek home planet of Ryloth. Anakin and Ahsoka lead a squadron of fighters against a Trade Federation battleship commanded by Neimoidian Captain Martuk. And that's a very basic plot of this episode. This episode directed by Brian O'Connell, who we've seen direct several of the really nice episodes over this course of the season. Our writers this episode, main writer is George Christic, with Henry Gilroy as the supervising story editor and Scott Murphy as, again, a supervising writer. So, again, names we are very familiar with at this point in the season. They kind of have their writing team honed in by this point for Season 1. We'll see how many of these names carry over into Season 2. I think that's going to be a really interesting aspect when we get to the next season. Like, how many of these names stay with us as far as behind the scenes, behind the directions and writing and just general storytelling. I mean, we know Dave Filoni is not going anywhere. He and Lucas are intimately involved in the production and the creation of every episode of the series. But what changes do they make? What adaptations do they make to fan reaction after the first season of the series? And that's going to be something we're going to make note of. We're going to talk about as we get into Season 2 of the show. Our cast for this episode, once again back as Ahsoka Tano. We have Ashley Eckstein, my goodness. Matt Lanter returns as Anakin Skywalker. D. Bradley Baker as the Clone Troopers and Captain Rex. Corey Burton picks up the slack this episode. Corey Burton is like the utility man of this show. He does so many voices for it. This week he is Martuk, the Neimoidian captain of the Trade Federation blockade. We have Matthew Wood as the battle droids / Wat Tambor. Tom Kane is our narrator, and Admiral Yularen. Admiral Yularen is a character we are going to talk about in more depth down the road because, well, he's one of the characters who transitions from the Republic to the Empire, and we're going to talk about his fate. James Arnold Taylor's back as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Terrence T.C. Carson is Mace Windu, and Tim Brock is the medical droid TB-2. All right, let's talk about this episode. I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about this character, because we've seen him before on the show. And I am referring to Wat Tambor. And Wat Tambor, is a character that had a unique visual style about him. You may remember him from Attack of the Clones. He is there on Geonosis. He has like the weird metal voice oculator thingamajigger. He is a male Sakoan. That's his species, and he runs the Techno Union, and is an executive of the Bactoid Armor Workshop. Bactoid Armor Workshop is a part of the Techno Union, obviously, and they came to Geonosis. They struck a deal with the Geonosians to put the droid foundries on the planet, and basically the Techno Union and Bactoid Armor Workshop are they're weapons designers. They make droids and guns and tanks and ships and all kinds of good stuff like that. But Wat Tambor is a member of the Separatist Council, and will later become what is also known as the Council of the Independent Planets, or Independent Systems, or whatever, something like that. You know what I'm trying to say. Once they tried to formalize themselves into something that's not well, I don't want to say a terrorist group, but as someone who they think they're doing. Okay, listen, let's not try to paint the Separatists as they think they're doing some kind of noble thing by freeing and liberating these planets. They're in it for profit. They are profiteers in this war, and that is sort of their bottom line. But Wat Tambor is an interesting character. He has an interesting visual look, and he's one of those characters that you'd only see him in a little bit in episode 2, and then later in episode 3. But I always thought he had a really unique look about him, and it was something there was something very kind of Flash Gordon-y about him, which makes a lot of sense knowing Lucas's history with the Flash Gordon serials back in his time when he was a kid. And so I kind of like that unique aesthetic that he has, and that very Robbie Robot kind of voice, and I think so. He's kind of a throwback to me, and again, one of the reasons why I always thought he's a visually interesting character. In this episode, he is basically the leader of the Separatist forces that move in on the planet Ryloth, and is appointed or self-appointed the Emir of Ryloth, and he's basically there to pillage the planet for its resources and valuable contents, and that's not a good thing. And Ryloth is an important world to the Republic, so they have dispatched Anakin and Obi-Wan and Mace Windu to attempt to liberate. So this 3-part arc is sort of broken down into the 3 parts of the invasion. You have to break the blockade, which is this first episode. And then Obi-Wan, in the next episode, has to break the ground defenses so that Republic forces can land and then enact the 3rd part of the plan, which is the 3rd episode, and which is basically the liberation of the people of Ryloth. And Mace Windu heads up that operation. And that's gonna be a fun one to talk about, because we're gonna get to have a little chat about Mace Windu, and I'm really looking forward to doing that. This episode, let's get to our Jedi Fortune cookie right away. It is a rough road that leads to the heights of greatness. That is an important Jedi Fortune cookie for this episode, because one of the strongest aspects of this episode, the sort of like the central driving part of this episode, is Ahsoka and her early failure here. This is one of Ahsoka's early tastes of defeat, of making poor command decisions, of trusting her ability in the face of overwhelming odds and being wrong. And it's one of these episodes. We talked about it when we first started doing the reviews for Star Wars: The Clone Wars, about how we were going to come across these pivotal episodes that took Ahsoka and helped endear her to a fan base that initially was very much against her. And listen, I'm not going to pull any punches. It was basically my generation of Star Wars fans that were against her. We were very set in our ways. We liked Star Wars like we liked our Star Wars, and we were not prepared for a character like Ahsoka. But Dave Filoni and George Lucas, they had a plan. And this is one of those episodes where you see Ahsoka make a grave, poor and grave decisions that cost the lives of the clone troopers under her command, and it affects her, and it weighs on her, and it shakes her to her core. and it's her ability to eventually process that and bounce back, because everyone's seen, Rex and the other commanders are seeing this now indecisive Ahsoka, and being Anakin's Padawan, she knows that Anakin has a plan, and it's up to her to make sure that it gets followed through, because the clones are thinking that maybe they shouldn't be trusting Ahsoka at this point, because they see how shaken she is. But Ahsoka bounces back, and Ahsoka is able to get it together and follow Anakin's plan, even though it's a crazy plan. Even though it's a crazy, crazy plan, that's the strength of this particular episode, and the strength of this opening chapter in this Ryloth trilogy. There's a lot of really neat character stuff built into these couple of episodes. Next week you get some interesting character stuff with some of the clone troops, and then obviously we get to explore a little bit of Mace Windu in episode 3, or the third episode of this series, I should say. Excuse me. All right, so yeah, Ryloth has been blockaded by separatist forces. I have a question about blockades in Star Wars, and I am turning to the wonderful people who listen to this podcast, because I am 100% positive that you are all smarter than me. In Star Wars in particular, and this happens on Star Trek too, and a lot of other sci-fi. It's and I don't know if it's just because they don't think that we as an audience can understand the three-dimensional space of space, but everything's on like this kind of like a plane, right? Like everything's like flat across, and in my mind I'm just like, why don't they just go up and over and around, or come around the backside of these planets to get past these blockades? Now perhaps that has to do with hyperlanes and some other things, but it's just one of those kind of little quirks about a lot of sci-fi, not just Star Wars in particular, that I always sort of wonder about. Is like, well, I mean, you could just come in from a different entry point, right, and be on the other side of the blockade in no time. I'm probably oversimplifying things. I turn to the audience, who is far smarter than I am and probably understands 3D space much better than I do. Anyways, but it's just one of those things I can't help but thinking about it. You sort of notice the way everything kind of happens on a flat line in space in the Clone Wars thus far. It's just an interesting observation, and I don't mean it as a criticism at all, because again, I love this show. So do not think that I am attacking the show. All right, let's go ahead. Oh, actually, we're not going to play our first clip just yet, because we want to establish that this is Ahsoka's first command. She's going to lead a starfighter raid against the blockade, attempt to crack the blockade so that they can land Obi-Wan's forces on the planet. And again, like we talked about, Ahsoka extremely confident in her abilities to do this, despite the fact that our Nemoidian captain has sprung a trap, as 4 more separatist ships spring out from the other side of the planet, which is maybe why you don't attack from the other side of the planet, because those other ships were waiting there anyways. But Martuk has sprung a trap. We are convinced that Martuk is a somewhat capable captain. He seems quite up to the challenge of dealing with the Republic forces, and he seems eager to engage with Anakin Skywalker once he begins to realize that these are Skywalker's battle cruisers, and he immediately assesses Anakin's battle history that they are aware of, and he formulates interesting plans and stratagems to go against Anakin, which I thought was a really unique idea for a commander in the Separatist army, to kind of have a record of Anakin's previous actions, and to be able to sort of, if not predict, at least anticipate that Anakin is an unorthodox commander and will probably attempt to do something rather unorthodox. Okay, so Ahsoka's plan, her battle, her fight against the blockade goes poorly because of the trap. The trap is sprung. Ahsoka ignores the order to retreat. We played that clip already, and it's a bad decision. It is a bad decision by Ahsoka, and it leads to, eventually, as Ahsoka finally gives the order to turn the ships around and head back to the battlecruisers, it's too late, because the Separatist forces are up against the Republic ships, and in a scene that is completely evocative of the image from Return of the Jedi, where the A-wing crashes into the bridge of the Star Destroyer, of the Super Star Destroyer, we get a Vulture droid crashing into the bridge of a Republic cruiser, injuring Admiral Yularen and sending Anakin flying through the air as well. So once Ahsoka is back on board the ship, she has to deal with well, I don't know the right word I want to put here. She has to deal with her decision and the consequences of that decision that she made. And I want to play that clip for you right now. So let's go ahead and hit that right now.
Ahsoka, I am very disappointed in you. You not only disobeyed the Admiral, you disobeyed me.
I thought I could knock out those battleships, so when Master Obi-Wan arrived, he could get through.
I know you meant well, Snips, but there's a bigger picture that you're not aware of. First rule of war, listen and obey your superiors.
But sometimes you get carried away.
All that means is that I understand what you're going through.
But I failed.
It was a trap, Snips. It wasn't your fault.
I lost so many of my pilots.
Take heart, little one. That's the reality of command.
All right, so there it is. Ahsoka's emotional distress at what she's caused, the lives that she cost by making a poor decision, and how it affects her. And it should affect her. She's a young Jedi. She is still a Padawan, and she's very, very young. And this is her first command, and people have died now under her command. Now, it's not as if she hasn't seen death firsthand at this point in her Jedi training, but to be the one responsible for causing it, for it to be the people under your own command, and dying because of your decisions and your poor decisions, your inability to follow orders to retreat that would have saved lives. That could have saved lives. Again, something could have gone wrong. We don't know 100% for sure. You can't say that with certainty. But Ahsoka's defiance, Ahsoka's overconfidence, this is important to her development. This is important to her becoming what I've talked about before, how Ahsoka sort of becomes the embodiment of all the best things of the Jedi by being not a Jedi. And this is sort of one of those first steps she has to take in understanding and assuming responsibility. And we get a little bit more about that when Anakin lays out his plan for breaking the blockade and what he's going to do to break the blockade now that they've suffered a setback in their attempts to get to Ryloth, and so they can help those people. And the episode's fairly straightforward, so I don't need to go through so many of the bigger beats of the episode necessarily. But again, you have this shaken Ahsoka, and you're going to hear, because we're going to play the clip when Anakin begins to lay out the plan, and you hear the doubt in her voice and the lack of confidence and the lack of self-belief that Ahsoka has because of what she's just done. And it's her ability to overcome that so that she can do what needs to be done, so that she can help Anakin, break this blockade and rescue Anakin before he gets killed. Again, this says a lot about that character and her resilience, and how maybe she's not up for it necessarily in some sense, but how she is going to rise to the occasion, and it's really great. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's let Anakin lay out his plan here, and I'll probably chime in a little bit here and there as they make their way through the hangar. Ahsoka arrives back into the hangar deck and sees a buzz of activity, and she wants to know what's going on as Anakin's directing clones and leading an evacuation of one of the cruisers. So here we go. Anakin's going to break it down for her.
You said we couldn't just smash through the blockade. I decided that's partly true. You also implied that my plans put a lot of people at risk, and I agree with you on that one.
That's a first.
I decided the only way we can break the blockade is if I pilot the Defender right into their battleship and take out the commander.
What?
This way, I'm the only one at risk. Besides, the Defender is damaged already.
You can't be serious, Master.
It's a crazy plan.
You'll die.
No, I won't. That's where you come in. The enemy can't stop that ship from taking them out. R2 and I will get in an escape pod and jettison right before impact.
But the enemy fleet is right there.
I know. And I'll pretty much be defenseless in an escape pod. So, I'm depending on you to engage the remaining fleet with the combined forces we have here.
Master, I can't. If something goes wrong, I can't be responsible for it.
You are responsible, Ahsoka. These men are depending on you, and this time, so am I.
But Master, last time I thought...
Attention! Everyone,
Here we
attention!
go. Here we go.
All right, men, listen up. I'm taking over the Defender, and I'm leaving Commander Ahsoka in charge. She'll lead the second half of the mission when we engage what's remaining of the blockade.
Try to leave some ships for us, General.
Will do, Rex. Now, Commander Ahsoka will fill you in on the full plan.
Master, wait!
Good luck.
Master!
Awaiting orders, Commander.
And Ahsoka's still not ready for this burden.
I'll be on the bridge.
Well, you heard her, boys. Back to work. Come on, move it, move it!
All right, there we go. And Ahsoka, again, you can still see, not quite prepared just yet for what is to come, as far as breaking this blockade and what is being asked of her by Anakin. And you know, I want to talk about Anakin a little bit. We've talked in prior episodes about how much I enjoy this version of Anakin. I still have my criticisms and critiques of Hayden Christensen's performance in episodes 2 and 3. And more so in 2, I think, honestly. Like I rewatched Revenge of the Sith recently, and he's much better in that. And I don't think it's his fault in 2. I've said it before. There's some scripting issues in Attack of the Clones that don't work for me personally. That being said, I love this Anakin. I love this confident, decisive Anakin Skywalker, leader of clone troopers. A sort of symbol of I don't know, the Republic, I suppose, in a sense. He's sort of like this poster boy for the Republic, in a sense. And I like that. I like that version of him. This one he's come around to being Ahsoka's master and trying to help teach her and make her a better Jedi by mostly just believing in herself and having the confidence to do the right things that she's shown the ability to do in the past. So I think this is a strong episode for Anakin as well as a teacher. We've had some other episodes earlier where you see Anakin in a little bit of that arrogance and overconfidence that we got a taste of in Attack of the Clones. And again, that's an important through line for that character. But it's kind of nice to see this version of him as well. That's a little bit more grounded and a little bit more, I don't know, of a traditional Jedi, for lack of a better expression. A little bit more rounded, I suppose. We'll go with that. We'll go with a rounded in this sense. But I like that very much. He's very much a master teaching a student in this episode and trying to impart the bit of wisdom that he does have because of his arrogance and overconfidence in previous adventures has led to some mistakes. And he knows that. And as he's tried to empathize with Ahsoka earlier in the episode. So one of the scenes we didn't talk about yet was Ahsoka visiting Admiral Yularen in the infirmary. He's unconscious, got the head wrap going on, probably some kind of concussion happening, and her apologies and her regret at the decisions she made. And that comes into play in one of our big scenes where Ahsoka is trying to get her confidence back, comes up with a strategy, comes up with a plan. But Rex and the other clones on board the bridge, not quite sure it's the move to make. But Ahsoka asserts herself and then is reinforced by the return of Admiral Yularen. And I'm going to play that scene now too because I think that's a really strong one too. So let's listen to Ahsoka's plan. And again, remember the way she talks, the way she says these lines. There's you can tell the hesitancy on her part. Still concerned that if this doesn't work, people are going to die. So there's a little hesitance there, and I think the clones pick up on that. I think Rex and particularly this bridge commander, this bridge officer, pick up on that, and they want a plan that is less unorthodox, and Ahsoka makes her thoughts on that opinion known, and I really like that. So let's go ahead and play this one out.
Sir, even if Skywalker is successful and destroys the battleship, how will we stand up to the combined firepower of the remaining frigates?
I thought about that, and well, I have an idea.
Go ahead, Commander.
If we took the Resolute and angled her hull against the incoming frigates, the bridge and hangar deck would be relatively safe from their attack. We could draw them in and then use the bombers to outflank them. The bombers would be too fast and they would be trapped.
I'm not sure about this, Commander.
I think...
If we were certain the shields would hold, Perhaps a different strategy. We need to take more time and plan.
No! We don't have any more time! Master Skywalker needs me now! He needs us now.
The commander is right. I know this strategy is very bold, but these circumstances call for drastic measures.
Then the strategy will work, sir?
Well, will it?
Yes, it will.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Hey, and surprise, surprise, that bold strategy does work, Cotton. And Ahsoka's plan comes off without a hitch. Separatist forces are crushed under the heel of Ahsoka Tano. Okay, not quite the same thing, but you know what I mean. She's able to... the plan works. They invert the ship. They launch the Y-wing bombers. They blow the crap out of the Separatist forces. And Anakin gets to watch from the joy of a pod. The funny scene is when, knowing he's beaten the Separatist commander, Martok, just evacuates, leaves the battle droids there. It's like, I'm out of here. See y'all later. That's a pretty amusing scene. I gave me a little bit of a chuckle. Apparently, there's some kind of scuttlebutt about how initially that commander was going to die with the Separatist forces on the fleet, but I guess Lucas took a shining to that particular character and was like, you know what, let's just have him make it out on an escape pod. And I don't recall if we see that commander come back later on in the series, but that is something we're going to keep our eye out for as we move forward here. So yeah, let's wrap it up. Let's play like the last little sound clip as General Kenobi's forces move in and we get ready for the next phase of the Ryloth saga here. Let's play it out.
Ahsoka, this is Obi-Wan. May we begin our landing?
Yes, Master. You're cleared for ground assault.
I won't even ask where the rest of Anakin's fleet is, or why he's in an escape pod.
That's probably for the best. Rex, that reminds me. Send a shuttle to pick up Master Skywalker.
Okay, there we go. And that pretty much wraps up the episode. They come pick up Anakin, and we go to the next phase of the battle for Ryloth, essentially. And again, I like this episode quite a bit. It's a strong 7.5 for me. Good, solid action stuff in there. Great development for Ahsoka as she faces her first real hurdle as a Jedi Knight, and is sort of called on her overconfidence and her the overwhelming belief in her own abilities and in the face of overwhelming odds. And that's not always the case. That's not always going to work out for you. Again, a very big first step for that character in becoming the Jedi that we see her become by the end of the series, and the Jedi that we meet in Season 2 of The Mandalorian. And, oh boy, what a fun one. I really am looking forward to getting into these next 2 chapters. I really enjoyed this Ryloth arc. And we'll talk more about Ryloth in the Twi'leks themselves in a future episode. There's probably a special Bantha Tracks coming down the road. We're going to start examining some of the cool alien species of the Star Wars galaxy, and we're gonna start profiling Jedi, not in the bad way, just giving more like a profiles in courage Jedi Knights, and we'll start breaking down some more of the history and some of the more of the lore surrounding some of our favorite Jedi Knights from this Clone Wars era, including perennial fan favorite Mace Windu. So get ready for those sort of episodes coming soon as well. We got a lot of exciting things we're planning out here for the summer months during Clone Wars. During Clone Wars. Not the actual Clone Wars are not going on outside my window. I apologize. That was a bit of a misleading statement. But we got a lot of exciting things to supplement our coverage of Star Wars: The Clone Wars as we continue to revisit this great series and just have a really good time with it. So I want to thank you all for checking it out, staying with me, and being so incredibly supportive and wonderful. It means the world to me. I would do the show if no one was listening. Well, maybe if one person was listening, I would still continue doing the show. But the fact that we have what I consider to be a nice sized audience is just completely endearing to me. And I thank you all so much for the support. But again, hit me up. Find me on social media. It's at Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram. You can email me. It's mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Those are the best ways to reach out, support the show. Another way to support the show, give us those sweet 5-star reviews. If you're listening on Apple iTunes, write us a review. Give us the 5 stars, the 5-star treatment, and we give you the 5-star treatment in return. Because that's how this works. We're all friends here, and I don't know what other And obviously I know the other podcasting platforms, but only a few of them let you, rate and review shows. So that Apple Podcast is pretty important. But we are on so many of your other favorite platforms. We have Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Pandora, Amazon Music, Audible, and so many, many more. And the list will continue to grow. We will continue to submit and get on as many platforms as humanly possible. It's going to be exciting. It's an exciting time right now. I'm so excited we're to this Ryloth arc. Get ready because it's going to be a fun one, and we may even crank these out a tad faster, just because I want to get these 3 Ryloth episodes in, and then we're going to wrap up the season early, so we're going to have some time to get some other content in before the Bad Batch starts. So brace yourselves for that. Brace for impact. You know what I mean. But keep your bucket on. It's always safer just to keep your bucket on because you never know when you'll have an impact. With that being said, there is only one way to end this podcast, but I'm going to tell you one thing first. My name is Tom. This is the Mandovision Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And again, there is only one way this podcast can end, and this is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.